So I'm going to pardon my hair. I have Mother Nature hair. It does what it wants most of the time. I think one of the key things that you said, Jayla, was allowing people to hire for themselves. People often think I'm a consultant and I'm coming in to do the hiring, and that's not what this is all about. So I'm going to give you some insights today, and what I'm hoping is that by the end of it, you can pick out one thing that you're going to do differently when you hire. I did bring 8 books, so if you want a book, come and talk to me. And so if you're going to get to a point where an insight makes a difference, I'm going to do some talking, and I want you to be prepared, because there's really not that many of you, to ask questions. If something comes up and it seems like a mystery, please ask for, some clarification or even a specific question that you might have. So I'm going to tell a few stories as we go through this as well. Generally, it takes me about 25 to 30 minutes to go rip through this slide deck. So we have 35 extra minutes. And then the real fun begins. This is my friend Pam Jodway, who's here to support me. But okay, so next slide. Where we're going to start is in all of the work that I've done with thousands of companies, is these are the 4 biggest mistakes that companies make. They don't involve enough people. So how often does it happen for me to have somebody come up to me and say, hey, I'm a director of a bank, and now I got to hire. I don't have any training, but I got to hire these people, and I don't know what I'm doing. So the clue is that most people don't know what they're doing. So they're fighting that, but they're also fighting the tradition that they have to do it by themselves. So we're going to talk about that one in a little bit. Next is they don't know exactly what they're looking for. And this comes into play in a couple of different ways. I say, oh, I got to hire a bank teller. I know what bank tellers do. And maybe this director of the bank knows what they do, but I certainly don't. We say, what are the skills that we want this person to have? And what are the personality traits that we want them to have? We don't often look at what the culture of this bank looks like. And how do we hire for that? How do we see if there's a match? We'll talk about that. I will say here that once you fully define what you're looking for, that's the purple squirrel, and no one is ever going to be exactly that. Next problem is they don't know how to see someone for who they are before they hire them. So how many of you have actually made a hire, and then 3 weeks, month later, you go, oh my God, what have I done? Yeah, it happens, right? So the system will account for that. And lastly, people rely heavily on their gut, even when they're going, God, there's this one thing about him that really is troubling me, but he's got all these other things. I like him. Man, what a great smile, and he can sell. Whatever. So they rely heavily on their gut. So what we need is a system that's going to allow us to be more objective and to say, oh, yes, I love that person, but they're not right. And that's what I call blessing and releasing people. They're good people, but not the person I need to hire. So the next slide. We're going to get into the solutions for these 4 different mistakes that companies make. The first solution is forming what I will call the unconventional hiring team. And you'll notice that almost all of my slide titles have a trademark at the end. And oddly, THE is the acronym for the hire effect. So I was able to trademark the hire effect but then everything with a capital THE in the beginning allowed me to trademark these names. So just a little fact. Okay, so when you're designing your hiring team, you need someone in or multiple people in these different categories. Let me first tell you a story about why I came up with the unconventional hiring team. I was running a consulting firm. We had 50 consultants. They were all highly compensated. And I always had a customer waiting. So I would get the customer, then I would be going and looking for the person that had needed to come in, right? And I needed to do it fast. And I also needed to coordinate the one person that was helping me hire. And yes, I'd hired before, but I just didn't have a system in my head yet. But after hiring for this company for 10 years, I realized I can't do it by myself. I have to have help. And then over that time period, it really came clear to me they fell in different categories. And it was doing different things. So the unconventional hiring team, if you're going to hire for culture, you need somebody on the hiring team who embodies it, who knows it, who lives the vision and the culture, so they can see it. But they're also going to get the next solution or the next tool that I'm going to show you, so it'll help them even more. You need somebody who's project managing. This is a big problem out in the world, is we as employers will interview someone and say, I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you next week. And then we know we're not going to hire Janine. We're not going to hire Janine. So it's an uncomfortable conversation. So we need somebody who's holding all of that, who's making sure that there are candidates in the pipeline and that there are people that need to be interviewing or doing these certain things. We also need a coworker. So why do we need a coworker? I say you can have the manager, a peer, or even subordinate on the hiring team. And they can participate in different ways. But if a coworker is part, or multiple people are part of that hiring process, they're already invested in whoever you end up hiring anyway. So they have this intent, maybe unconscious, to make them successful even after you hire them. And that relationship starts here. The intuitive. This person I would consider myself. And many of us. How many of you think you're intuitive? Yeah. You'll see in a minute. So the story I'll tell you here, which I told you I'd tell you a story, and I haven't told you a story yet, about the intuitive is a software as a service company. Every Friday, this was, I think they had 1,200 people in 6 different locations. And every Friday in every location, they had a buffet lunch where everybody in that location got to invite a friend or someone they'd want to meet other people in the company. And in this particular client, the caterer was always coming up to the CEO after going, gosh, I loved Janine when she showed up and she was talking to Pam and she was so insightful. Have you thought about her at all? Or she just nailed it. She just knew Janine had some value. So she was an intuitive. She didn't know software as a service, and she didn't even really know this company. But she was on their unconventional hiring team. So you see how that comes into play in a minute. The story I was going to tell you is this last one, is you need a person who's vested in your success, but comes from outside the company. What that gives you is perspective. And it may be like, oh, you don't want to ask Pam to do this every time you hire because that's too much. But you know that Pam knows marketing better than anybody, and you're hiring a marketing director. So who better to have on that team is somebody who loves me and knows what I do, and she can help me get a really good sense of, is this person, do they know marketing? Are they a good candidate? My favorite one here was we were hiring for a director of sales for a office supply company. And we had their longest term customer come in and be part of those last few interviews with the top candidates. And man, they knew backwards and forwards how they liked to be sold, what the products were, and how relationship building was. So they were an awesome person. So that is the hiring team. The unconventional part is these last two, the intuitive and the vested individual. Sometimes it takes a little bit of brainstorming with other people saying, who is that vested interest person we want on the team? Or who is that intuitive? And you might already have the intuitive. The intuitive might be the project manager or the vision and culture person. So any questions or thoughts that occurred to you as I went through this? Yeah?
I would say I work for a large company and they have a process defined. And there's no way, and you can't even interview unless you go through a training, right?
You can't interview a person for a job without getting trained.
Correct. So I think the last part, although I totally understand the value there, I don't think that would not be something they would consider. So how do you provide?
It's a great question.
Some insight to that or whatever along without that?
So I would ask for you to wait for your answer when I talk about the proof.
Okay.
Any other questions? Nope. Okay. Next slide, please. So the rest of the system, like what you do with candidates, includes these three things. The right fit is the solution for not knowing what you're looking for. The obstacle course is revealing who the candidate is as they're going through the hiring process. And the last one, the proof, is a way of being more objective. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk about each one of those. Probably the most important here is, what is culture anyway? You know, most clients, as I engage with them, do not have an operational way of thinking about culture. They go, well, we wear suits every day and we don't swear and, you know, whatever. What was funny about that, Pam?
I'd be out immediately.
Oh. So culture, I will give you my definition. There are many definitions, but what this definition of culture allows us to do is become operational. And what I mean by that is apply what is culture to your company. And culture is two different categories of things. The core values, which is basically what is driving the decisions and the actions of the people in the company. Those are the core values. The mood is the manner in which the team work together and with other people, customers, vendors, community, and so forth. The bottom part is so regular for you. Like, you know this, right? You got to test for skills and you got to look at personality trait stuff. So the right fit is a rubric. Next slide, please. And this, you don't have to read, but this is one of our tools. So what we do in our training is we gather the unconventional hiring team and we form this rubric. Where that orange arrow is the context. We call that the context point. That's what we're looking for, all of those things. That second column is the definition. So we don't do like Merriam-Webster or anything. What we do is we get a distinction that the unconventional hiring team has put together for themselves. So authentic, Merriam-Webster, is not what this is a flight company, a flight training company. Authentic. Actions are consistent with their words, their commitments, and they hold themselves responsible. That's what authentic was to them. That might not be your authentic, but it's theirs. So they were each looking for authentic. Those top 4 lines are the core values, what's driving decisions. You can see genuine caring for others is another. They also came up with a shared definition of what that means. And then you go on down the line, right? So what are we looking for context-wise? There's 8, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 different things that we're looking for. This isn't everything we're looking for, but these are the critical components, right? So as the team, so you imagine if you have an unconventional hiring team of 8 people, they all need this. They all need to say, every time I sit down and I'm going to talk to someone, I'm looking for this. This is the purple squirrel. And this is what we mean by that. Because authentic isn't Merriam-Webster, we need to know what we said it meant, right? This last column just kind of gets the individual that's encountering the candidates in the mood for looking for what is that thing. So we have the unconventional hiring team develop a few things, just a couple things. For instance, humble yet competent. They don't have to draw attention to get credit. They don't have to say, well, I did this, which is kind of a tricky line when you're interviewing somebody. All stories aren't about them being the hero. You know, these are just behaviors that would allow them to start to see, is this person humble yet competent? So you can imagine that putting this together with an unconventional hiring team takes time. But it's also developing a shared narrative. Because if you're looking for humble yet competent that's different than my humble yet competent, we're really not doing ourselves any favors. So that time together, developing culture piece and also developing core skills and personality traits is important. So I dumped a lot on you there. What's that look like? Any questions? Any thoughts? Do you use rubrics? Do you have these things in your work? No.
Kind of a competency-based,
A competency, okay.
but it doesn't leave a lot of room, right? So I think the action, you ask those competency-based questions. You're looking for certain behaviors. Have they learned the lesson? Have they implemented the lesson in future issues or events? So, but I think it's a structured. What does it look like from a company standpoint? Not necessarily what I'm looking for.
What you're looking for. Well, so this really drives us to be on the same team. Like you can be looking for other things too, like especially if you're the manager of this person that's coming in. You might have extra things you're looking for, and that's cool. But this is what we're looking for as a team and as a whole. We want, if you're going to manage this new person, you want all these people looking and saying, oh, I didn't see that, and holy crap, did you see that? You know, that kind of stuff. And you did mention behaviors, and that's going to come into play in the obstacle course.
Does your book and your tools and your online continuous learning, is that designed so that the team and the company can do this on their own in the future?
Yes, yes. So that brings up a distinction that I often start with an unconventional hiring team, and that's the 3 stages of knowing. So if I showed you this, by the end of this, hour-long talk, you will just be familiar with this. You won't know it. So you can't walk away and hire perfectly with this system. You may go through learning tools, read the book, talk to me 16 times, and you'll understand it, which is the next phase of knowing. It's kind of academic, like, oh yeah, I can name the 5 parts or whatever, but I still can't do it. And the knowing is, I've run into every breakdown, I can anticipate them, I know the solutions, that kind of thing. So to your question, Pam, I'm really looking to leave people in an engagement, in a training engagement, knowing how to hire, and that takes time. Okay. Any other questions about the right fit? Okay, next one. So the obstacle course, when you design it, so we teach our clients this skill. We teach them how to design an obstacle course, because an obstacle course for a COO is different than one for a home care worker. We have to have multiple positions within our organization, so we have to have multiple obstacle courses. So the 2 design principles in an obstacle course are, you're going to have high touch steps and low touch steps. Low touch steps is, you don't want to be doing an hour-long interview with somebody that when they walk in you go, oh man, they said the F word. You don't want to have spent your time doing this if that doesn't match your culture. Maybe it does, I don't know. So low touch steps are things like a 5-minute phone screen, or review their resume and a cover letter you ask them to do something or say something about. The other design principle, let me go to high touch steps, I'm sorry. High touch steps are, you're still sussing out candidates, you're still getting them out of the pool and looking for the ones you want to spend more time on. So like one of the final steps, high touch step, is having a panel interview. Would you want to have a panel interview with your board chair and your CEO and 3 other people and have them walk in and say the F word? Like, you don't. You want to reveal that earlier, right? Assignments. I struggled in the beginning with this, and I spent so much time in economic development when somebody would come to me and say, I have no idea how to see these people for who they really are. And I say, you need to get them to behave. You need to watch them behave, and you need to do it more than once. So this is where kind of that urgency to hire and that need to really validate, are these people the people you want, right? So an assignment is getting a commitment from them. So how do you build trust? I ask you to do something and you do it. I ask you to do something more complex and you do it. And you get it to me when I want it, and you give it to me in a way that I asked for it. So that's an assignment. The next slide will describe assignments just a little bit more, and I'll tell another story here. So low touch, we're pretty good at these low touch things. We generally know how to give assignments. We forget that we have them in the high touch steps. And yes, there is a dance that you do to not ask too much of them, but ask enough of them, right? You sometimes, and I'm not an HR person, but I will tell you, sometimes you gotta pay people to do things that you ask them to do, even though they're not your employee yet. So you gotta be careful with that. So high touch steps, I would say the third bullet down, write a sample letter or blog, is generally something that you would want to put them in a situation that they would normally be in. You want to see, do they know what a point of view is? And this is if you're hiring a social media expert, right? And then you want to say, Janine, in the next 30 minutes, can you email me a 500-word blog post about this? So you've already described what point of view is, you can see their writing, and you can see how they act under pressure. That's an assignment, right? Produce a 90-day work plan. Here's my story here. Back to the office supply company and the 3 top candidates for VP of sales. We had 3 candidates were coming in to do a panel interview with, our favorite customer. We don't want to waste their time. The CEO, I think there were like 7 people on that panel interview because this was really important. And then we asked them, when you come in, if you could be prepared to talk for 15 minutes about what you think your 90-day ramp-up plan is. And we were very specific to ask that exact same question of all 3 of them. And we intentionally built in some dead space afterward. We would say, Pam, can you please be ready to present your 90-day ramp-up plan at the beginning of the panel interview next Tuesday? So we were waiting. We were waiting to see, is Pam going to ask any questions? 1 candidate asked no questions, said, got it, locked down. 2 said, who do I report to? What's my budget? What training things do you have online that I can have access to? They asked, can I get the branding documents for your company? I mean, these other 2 candidates came in kicking butt. They came in with a 15-minute presentation, PowerPoint that matched the colors and the branding, had the point of view, and had so many different components to what their 90-day ramp-up plan was. The 3rd candidate came in and was sitting, waiting for the panel interview with a legal pad, and he was writing. Of course, I went and asked, so what are you doing? And he said, I'm working on my 90-day ramp-up plan. And I simply said, that's really great that you're working on it, but I'm pretty sure you're not for us. So obviously I didn't say it that way, but the other 2 came in, and that assignment alone really told us, how do they sell? Because if you don't sell yourself, you're not going to sell whatever I got to sell. But also, they're thinking about questions and how they engage with the customer, right? Like, what do you want anyway out of this 15-minute thing? And is there a budget? Do you have a budget for the office furniture? So it told us a lot. That's assignments. Any questions? No? Okay. Next slide. So this is, again, the obstacle course, and this is mostly for the project manager of a hiring process. We break out what the low-touch steps are. We break out what the high-touch steps are. We design the assignments, and we name the different steps so that by the time we're done, we know, like if somebody's in the 3rd step and we know we have to give them an assignment, we don't have to remember what the assignment is. We look at it and we read it. Yeah?
Your response script in your book?
Yeah. Oh, are the response there? I think there's a template in there. Okay. If there's not, then email me and ask me, and I will send it to you. I have a bunch of, on both sides. These are my business cards right in front of you. If you just want to pass those back. It has my email address and my phone number and so on it. So that's a great question. So these scripts, we actually develop them in training.
Okay.
And we also teach them how to develop them. And then we teach them probably some more complex thoughts about organizational development. Like if you just sent Pam an email that said, hey, thanks, but no thanks, that's way different than, we noticed that you have an impressive background and we really appreciate you coming in. It's got to have your flavor. It's got to have you in it.
I have another question.
Yeah.
What is your opinion about personality tests and different things?
That's a great question too. So there's no one test that's good for everyone. And I would say some companies really get into DISC. They love that. So what I say to them is you can use DISC, but really be clear that this is just one context point. Maybe they don't have the, high B, low C, whatever that is. There is no B in DISC, is there? So personality tests, you can use different ones on the market. There's tons of them. And I have taken personality tests every which way. But you can also, if you define what you're looking for, like let's say curiosity. If you have 7 people, multiple contact points with the candidate, and they're looking for curiosity, and they just say to themselves, did they ever ask me a question? I don't think they did. That tells you something, right? Did that help?
Yeah, I was just curious your opinion about it.
There's one that I loved for a long time, and that was Colby. I don't know if you have you ever heard of Colby? Yes. So there's 4 different areas. This really comes in handy when you're looking for an executive assistant, because I like to do shit. I'm sorry I said the S word. I like to do stuff, and yeah, not hired. I like to do stuff, and I would often step on their toes. So we had to have a safe word when I saw that my getting stuff done was higher than theirs. If I was doing stuff I shouldn't be doing, she always said banana split. And I'm like, oh, darn. So sometimes they come in handy for certain mechanics. I definitely caution people not to use it as a be-all to end-all. They're not an ENFJ, so won't hire them. Yes?
I have a question from a student here. So Western has us in the PREW community, which is a first generation college thing, and they have us take Clifton Strengths assessment.
Oh, love those.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they tell us to write it on our resume, write it on that. Then when applying for jobs, especially if it's with I've done jobs where it's either for restaurants or I've done jobs with law firms.
Mm-hmm.
I usually change up my resume either way, but do you recommend, do you think having that on there is a good idea all around?
I think it's a blessing and a curse. My very top thing is a maximizer. And if people see that I'm in a leadership role and I'm a maximizer, they might have some interpretation about what that means that says she acts before she thinks. So I just say if you want them, then I will give them to you, or you may also kind of work into, yeah, I took the Clifton Strengths Finder and I'm really proud of this thing, and I see that really speaks about me. So I wouldn't put it on my resume, but I might. I don't know. Did that help? Okay. What time is it? 3:36. Nice. Okay. All right. So sometimes we do personality tests, but if you really dig down into that right fit and we say we want these 3 personality traits, we're really looking for what are the things that would tell me that this person has this personality trait. And I would also say, the person that you hire, you then say, this is what we were looking for. And this is what we see you have. And this is where we're a little bit. So you're setting expectations that they're going to be curious, right? And you're telling them, I want you to be curious. Then that allows them to live into the role a little bit better. All right, so the last tool, next slide please, is the proof. Okay, I struggled with this for a long time because I wanted to name my book Experiential Hiring. And, you know, what does that mean anyway? But the proof just allows you to validate your opinions and your intuition. So for every one of those 15 context points that we had on the right fit, every time you engage with a candidate, you are saying, for each context point, plus I saw it, and this is how I saw it. This is what made me think they had it. A 0 if I didn't see either way, and a minus, which is equally important, right? If we can see where we would need to invest in someone where they have a minus, that's awesome, right? If you have too many zeros throughout the whole process, you need to redesign the process. You need different assignments, different questions. By the way, I think you asked about the scripts. We also, in the training, write the interview scripts. Too many people think, oh shoot, I gotta go interview and Jayla is in my office. I got a zillion things to think of. What's your best virtue and your worst vice? You know, like questions like that that don't have any relativity to what you care about and what you're trying to do.
Would you ever, I don't know, keep asking questions, but would you ever have them rank those qualities of like, you know, what we're looking for, and then even more so like the job responsibilities, like, hey, I really love doing this, or I hate doing this.
Sure.
Or, you know, being able to
Yeah.
rate themselves.
So I don't share the right fit until I hire them, or until I'm in a position where I'm saying, you know what, I want her so bad. So I'm going to go through all the things that I was looking for, and here's where I think you might have a challenge. Or where do you think you might have a challenge? Like, don't even share yet. I almost never, I don't think I've ever shared proof documents. But if you could go to the next page. This is the last tool that we use regularly, and it forces people to validate why they said there was a plus. It's so easy to just go plus, 0, minus, plus, plus, plus. Done. But what we want is for someone to say what they saw when they saw a plus, right? And what they saw when they saw a minus. Okay, so here's where I think panel interviews can get super juicy. If everybody has a proof document in their hands, and you got 7 people, and you got 2 smacking up awesome candidates, every person fills out a proof document on their own. And when the candidate leaves, we go through every one of these context points. It is not about convincing the other people that it's a minus or a plus. It is about revealing what you saw. So the more information you can get before you hire somebody, the better decision you're going to make, right? So I can't tell you how much pushback I get on, no, you must put your assertions. You must put the evidence that you saw, because that forces you to be more objective. I had, short story, an engineering company hired me to come in and talk to their hiring team, which turned out to be everybody in the company. There were, I think, 27 of them, and they all did something in the hiring process. And I showed them this, and they were like, oh, why don't you have a 1 to 10? That should be 1 to 10, not a plus 0 minus. And I said, okay, well, let's just assume that you do that. Your candidates are going to come back with a 5.4 to a 7.2. What do you do with that? I don't know. And so I had them actually use the proof document in a process. And man, they are my biggest proponents of this document. Scientists, and I think it was the Detroit Institute of Science, was hiring someone, and I had all these scientists come in, and it felt intense to me, but as I went through this, I'm like, please, just trust me. Just do this once, and you will see. So that's how the panel interviews can get juicy, but there's already a piece on every one of these proof documents, which you might not be able to read, up in the top hand right. Every person that engages with a candidate gets to say, does this candidate get it? Do they get what this role is? Do they want it? I mean, how many times have you interviewed somebody who gets it and they're capable of it, but they don't really care whether they get the job or not? Sorta. So you have an opportunity to voice your opinion about that. Do they get it? Do they want it? Are they capable? But the decider, so 17 people are not going to decide who gets hired. There's a person, right? So someone who gathers all of these proof documents and looks through them. They are starting to see, where are all the minuses showing up? Can I invest in this person? Because you're never going to get somebody who has all pluses, right? So that is the proof document. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to say about this, other than this proof document is a reflection of the right fit that I told you about in the beginning. And these context points, where the orange arrow is, are the ones from the right fit. And the very top of the personality was bright and brief. We were hiring an executive assistant for the 2 CEOs of this company. And we needed them not to come in and say, tire problems this morning. And I just, I was tired, I'm tired, like going on and on about what their world is like, rather than, what do you need? What can I do? Is that what you wanted? So bright and brief, what is it? That was one of my favorites that people came up with. Confident, self-motivated. You can use the personality test, but like I said, they can sway you. So that is the system, and those are the 4 things. What time is it? 3:45. Nice. Okay, so what I said at the beginning was you were going to see insights. You can go to the last one. If you have any questions before I ask you, anything about the proof or obstacle course or the whole system?
I have one more question. What do you think about people who are overqualified?
Overqualified?
Yeah, because so many times you hear we say oh, they're overqualified, but they get it, they want it, they're capable, and so I always feel like.
Yeah, I am a big proponent of bringing the elephant in and revealing it, So it appears to me that you're overqualified. That's the way it feels. What spoke to you about this? What challenges are you going to have being overqualified? So I would talk about it. That's what I would do. I would not make a decision just based on my opinion that they're overqualified. I'd find out what their motives are. And that helps you. Now, if I've never actually done this, but it would be curious to me to find out, is there a way to develop an assignment that would allow me to see, did they think they're overqualified, or does this job seem underneath them, or whatever? I don't know. I hadn't thought about that. Be happy to talk to you more about that. Any other questions? Yeah.
I find that particular role of hiring salespeople
Mm-hmm.
challenging. Have you worked a lot with that, and you found that this works really well for that, or can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So I feel and have found with as many times as I've engaged with clients, and people self-implement this hiring system. They don't even call me until they, like, oh crap, there's this showing up. It truly is industry agnostic, because you can work in the assignments that you need. You can ask the relative questions that you need. It's also, I would say, it leans toward the knowledge worker versus, although I've designed systems for home care workers. So the system does work in every industry I've tried. I'm trying to think, the last time I gave this talk was months ago. The only industry I think I haven't worked in, I was going to say it's like financial, nope, I did financial services. Wealth management, I haven't done, but it's close to financial services. So I don't know of one that doesn't work. This is kind of a plug and play kind of stuff. Did that help? Yeah.
How are you doing, so this is a great philosophy or a great technique to use when we're not in a situation where it's 4.6 unemployment rate and we're trying to find,
Yeah.
I have clients that can't find
Yeah,
restaurant workers or retail.
sure.
So, when is there opportunity, when does this not apply? Like, have you gotten a lot of people still using this right now, even under these situations?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. I will say two things. If you could go back to the obstacle course, that would be great. And that's the 4 boxes across. The thing I would say about using it in an intense talent restricted market, the better you get at doing it like this, the shorter you can cut the time down and react to talent. You got a good one, what do we do with them? We do these 5 things. And so it's a well-oiled machine, so you don't make a mistake. The other thing you can do is that, it could be, I would say, the other design principle, which I didn't actually put on here, is you need more than 3 steps. And depending upon the role, you might have 6 or 7. One of my first paid clients years ago was looking for a partner. And that's complex. And
I was thinking about this process for partnership.
oh yeah, it's awesome. You can pick vendors this way. You can pick, actually, I hesitate to admit this, but this is how I found my boyfriend. I knew what I was looking for, and he passed all the assignments. No minuses. The thing that I was going to say is you could have a step at the end, which is, the kind of conditional 90-day 1099 position. You can't do that for like COOs and CXOs and stuff like that. But you can do it for software developers. You can work on a 1099 project base. I want you to do this project with these 3 people.
They need benefits.
If they need benefits and they want a job, yeah. I mean, it depends. I mean, you can You can say conditionally, for the next 3 months, I will pay for this, whatever it is, Aflac or, I'll pay for benefits for the 3 months that you're doing this. It really gets them invested. It's hard no matter what. Talent constrained market is hard. But I challenge you to not do any of these things in a talent constrained market. It costs more money. It definitely does. Definitely does. Anything else? Yeah.
Do you have an assignment suggestion for testing emotional intelligence?
Testing emotional intelligence. Okay, so I want you to recognize you're talking to an organizational development person, not an HR person. I'm going to tell you the story of what I did to test for stress, ability to work in a stressful environment for my consulting company 20 years ago. So these were people that were making $325,000 a year. They also knew the systems diagram. So we went from mainframe to distributed systems. That's what we did for Fortune 500 companies. So what I did was I had my fabulous executive assistant, who was a great actor, come in the middle of an interview with me and say, oh my God, Blue Cross and Blue Shield servers are down. They were losing $1 million a minute. I don't know what to do. I can't find these 3 people. These are the people that are going to solve the problems for me. And I can't find them. What do I do? And I'm like, okay, we can do this. So, you know what? It's just occurring to me that you know system diagrams. Could you look at this for 5 minutes while I go see if I can find one of these 3 people? And I always gave those people a way out. I always gave them the door, nobody watching, and half the time the people would be gone. So to me, that's kind of on the edge, right? That's a stress thing. I didn't care. I owned the company, and I knew what risks I was taking. What I would say is I had forgotten what was the test? What was the thing you were looking for? Emotional intelligence. I would say that's one of your context points, right? And looking for emotional intelligence, you are not only asking questions and scripts all along the way or designing an assignment. The assignment might be to take this emotional intelligence, tool, take the test, and then talk about it. I might also have them say, emotional intelligence is really important in this position. Can you tell me 5 things that would be a big challenge for you, or 5 things that wouldn't be a big challenge? So I would really dig down into the interview process and the assignment process with emotional intelligence. Might even test them from, like, I'm down, I'm sad. Act one way or another and see how it affects them. I'm not suggesting that, just so you know. Ask your HR person. All right, so how many more minutes we got? 5 minutes, okay. So I asked you at the beginning, or told you at the beginning, I think I will give you insights that might help you hire better. And I say this all the time, and I believe it. If you just do one thing different, you're gonna hire better. What do you think you're gonna do differently? What are you gonna look at?
I feel like I love the idea of like the unconventional team, because typically it hasn't been like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so just thinking about who else can be there to have a different perspective.
Gotcha.
So, and then even just taking the time to really go through these.
Mm.
And the other thing I really love is that ±0. I feel like it really puts the responsibility back on the hiring team to be more present
Yeah.
in the interviews.
Yep.
Because I feel like that's so easy to be off in the ethers.
Yep. I teach an interview skills workshop, and it takes about 4 hours to go through this workshop. And one of the things I always say, get ready for an interview. Don't make this a thing that you do. Turn your phone off, put it in your desk. If you are doing it in person, close your laptop. Be present. And then we talk about what presence is. So great. So I picked on you, but we don't have time for everybody to go. Is there somebody else that wants to share? If you don't, I will pick. Yeah.
We use the plus, the zero, the minus, and we use the gets it, wants it, capacity to do it. And we do.
Are you in EOS?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, but we still don't, and we have kind of your team except for the outsider, but we still could add an extra. We get excited and do it too fast. I mean, we still need to have, we need the back part of it.
Okay, you need the high.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we just do it too fast. So
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Yeah.
That is hard.
we need to spend a little more time, and the obstacle course was, we don't do that.
So I've worked with Gino Wickman and his people analyzer, and we do go in much deeper depth than
Right.
EOS does.
We
So
have it already in the team, fill out people analyzer and that sort
Yeah.
of thing. I don't think we talk about it enough, and again, we try to do some interview skills kind of piece, but we can do better.
yeah, great, excellent. Anybody else want to share? I won't yeah.
For sure, the assignment piece, that's not something that we've ever asked for, is an assignment that we find either ahead of time or after, and maybe like to set up the second.
Mm-hmm.
For sure, I think that's beneficial.
Great.
We've done it for data entry, so we give them like a typing test.
Oh, sure.
Right, so we've done that. But,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I had one assignment maybe a year and a half or so ago for an outpatient clinic. They were hiring nurses, and they would put like 4 or 5 pieces of garbage on the floor from the place where they picked the person up to the place where they were going to interview them to see if they picked stuff up.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of fun. All right, so that's it in a nutshell. If you have any other questions, you have my coaster. You're welcome.
Thank you.